And this, when he came here, was 1975. And when Srila Prabhupada came to New York, he had $7 or $8 in his pocket. The reason he was let in America is that Mr. Agarwal had sponsored Prabhupada. His father lived in Mathura. His father lived in Mathura, and he had met many sadhus, and his son had received many letters that, okay, can you sponsor this one, that one? So he never really, the son in Butler, Pennsylvania, never even expected Prabhupada to show up. So Srila Prabhupada did not come to America to start a business, to make money, or anything like that. His conviction and his knowledge, his faith in Krishna, was really the only thing he had. And Srila Prabhupada's conviction was such that he mostly attracted young hippies, young people. That was the mood at the time, the young people, they were all hippies. And as Malati said in her talk yesterday, that their mentality is that don't trust anyone above 35 years old. Which means we were really, as hippies, against the norm of society. We wanted to get out of the society. And one of that was peace and love. In other words, no rules, no regulations. And Prabhupada came and introduced rules and regulations. And he preached in favor that Arjuna was in Maya for not fighting on the battle of Kurukshetra. But most of these young people were against the Vietnam War going on in America. So try to understand the potency of Srila Prabhupada. He was completely reversing our whole mindset just by his powerful preaching. And this powerful preaching encouraged many of the young to go in England. Lochanananda, Harivas came to Paris. They started preaching. They started presenting Prabhupada's words. And within 10 years, not by them making business or so forth, just by going on the street preaching, distributing Prabhupada's books, they were able to purchase this place. It's actually a miracle. You know, in history, this has never been done. So we can understand Prabhupada was very proud of the accomplishment. Coming from India, begging for even a ticket to be on the Jaladuta, not even being able to pay on this cargo ship to even be able to come. He had to go and stay at the office of the one who was in charge of that Jaladuta, and then get that free passage to go all the way to America. And Prabhupada, the reason he convinced us is because we could see Srila Prabhupada was a transcendental person. He was not of this world. And we all wanted to be like Srila Prabhupada. Because we understood that Srila Prabhupada was the real refuge. You know, we have now more and more we hear about refugees. And people coming from other countries, escaping a hellish situation. In America, it's a big thing. All the people from South America, they want to leave because their situation is very hellish and they want to come and enter America, and now they're getting deported and so forth. So we have this term refugee. People want a refuge. But it's such an illusion, because it's not because you come to France, there is no birth, there's no disease, old age, and death. They may die in their country, but they're also going to come here and die also. It's not that people in France or in Canada or in America, in the rich, developed countries, people are not dying. So it's an artificial refuge, it's an illusion that has been presented through economic development and medicine, hospitals and so forth, and technology, that, okay, this is going to be the panacea, this is going to be perfection of our lives if we just accomplish this. But what people are becoming is just economic slaves. Before the slaves, England, many countries had black people who became slaves. But now everyone's a slave, economically. Everyone is so dependent. So what Srila Prabhupada was proposing for this place, in Mayapur, is just live very simply. And we saw with two things recently with the COVID-19, how Krishna, just with one little virus, can stop the whole world. Everyone shut down. Right? And Prabhupada was speaking about the United Nations, but we saw when everything shut down, each country was just protecting themselves. They didn't want any more tourists. Any tourists had to leave. Everyone shut down, and bodily identification. Oh, you're not French, get out. You're not Canadian, get out. You're not this, get out. Okay? We're just going to protect our own people. We're going to close the borders. So we saw that, how powerful Krishna is. Just one little virus. He doesn't need such a big arsenal of weapons or so forth. You can just send one little virus and everything is stopped. All their technology, all their medicine, they're running all over the place trying to find some vaccine and so forth and so on. So, and the other thing we also saw with that is also people could still survive without so many things. So many things were closed. I don't know about here, but in Canada they closed all the bars, they closed all the, so many, only a little bit of food. Supermarkets were allowed to open and pharmacies. What was really necessities? But everything else was shut down. And people still continue to live. I mean, some people realize that how much do we really need of all this? They want to save the planet and buy electric cars and ozone depletion and all these things. But there is so much stuff that is being produced unnecessarily. So Prabhupada wanted us to just live a very simple life, rely on Krishna. And we often discuss about Varnashram, but what is really, we're not going to create Varnashram in Vedic times. That's not going to happen. But what we can do is have a simple lifestyle, where we just grow our own food, we rely on Krishna, we live a simple life, and we're not hankering after pleasure. Most people want pleasure, but we want contentment. Pleasure is in the mode of passion. Accepting, rejecting. 1 minute I'm happy, then I'm sad, then I'm frustrated, then I'm, but contentment comes in the mode of goodness, where I'm content. And it's like Prabhu was saying, it's not that we want people to starve. I remember when I joined, my mother had seen, news report or whatever, Mahatma Gandhi fasting and so forth. So she thought I'd join a movement like that I'd just be fasting and die, So, but then when I brought some prasadam at home, she realized it wasn't that. As Prabhupada said, this is a kitchen religion. We can eat our way back to God. And so there's nothing artificial. Prabhupada used to always say, there's nothing artificial in Krishna consciousness. Everything is there. If you, even if you want, we're not trying to be artificial celibates even. We can get married, we can have children. All these things are there. Nothing is artificial, nothing is imposed. And as we develop our Krishna consciousness, then naturally these things can be diminished, these things. And we can live a very simple life without complicating our existence unnecessarily. And because people have so many desires, as I mentioned earlier, they become economic slaves. They're working so hard just to make money. This is a cash society. Everyone needs money to do anything. You need to even have money to drink water nowadays. Everyone's buying these bottled, water. You can't even drink the water. So where is the benefit or the advantage of this society where you can't even drink the water? When I was young, some of the rivers we used to go swim But now you can't. They're so polluted. What all sorts of things that is invented. There's hundreds of chemicals invented every day. All sorts of things that are there that we don't even know what's going to be the consequence. And then people catch cancer and they catch all sorts of disease. But they can't determine why, because it's a cocktail of so many things they've been exposed to. And they realize, okay, 30 years later we have to ban this product because now it's been shown to cause cancer. So many things that are there in modern society that are really unnecessary. So Prabhupada was making the point, the foundation is, if you realize you're not that body, then everything is, then you can take the Krishna consciousness seriously. And that's what Kuti says, unless you still have material attachment for beauty, for strength, for wealth, fame, glory, then you can't seriously take the Krishna consciousness. So the devotee has to come to the stage of at least understanding that basic principle that I'm not the body, I'm a spirit soul. And Prabhupada would always make that point, emphasizing that point, because unless we get that, we become very convinced about that, then we may go on chanting Hare Krishna, but at a certain point, that will sprout out, that will come out again. And sometimes we see, unfortunately, devotees leaving after so many years, and sometimes we say, oh, they must have made some offense. Maybe, but maybe they also never, the seed of that desire was always there. And you can have a seed for hundreds of years, but unless the conditions are there, it won't sprout. So you have that seed, but all of a sudden some circumstances were created that seed sprouted. And therefore the person left Krishna consciousness, because his attachment was still there. The illusion of the material world was still there, and even though they did perform devotional service, and as Prabhupada said, there's no loss or diminution, but at least temporarily his devotion is interrupted. So this is a very beautiful property. I'm very glad that my wife, of course, sorry that she performed a lot of service here. I never lived there, but I'm looking for water. Yeah, some water or something.
Water.
Yeah. But it's definitely a very beautiful place. I've come to here a couple of times, several times, and I know this property has gone from highs and lows, and now that we have wonderful Maharaj here, I see that it's very, everything positive is coming, loving mood that the devotees should have among themselves, and happiness that we should share is being manifest. And you have a very beautiful property here. You could be the envy of many people that we can live in such a wonderful property. And as Prabhu was saying, take advantage of it, live a simple life. Grow your own food. Thank you. I'm also part of a community in Vancouver, BC, British Columbia, called Sarnagri. We have 1,700 acres there, and around is all crown land, government land. Of course, 2 years ago there was a major fire that burned a lot of the forest, because it's a semi-desert climate. It's not as lush as here, but the devotees have developed many wonderful things. There's no electricity coming from the power, the BC government, the BC Hydro. Every devotee has solar panels, and they have, of course, cell phones and internet and things like that. So it's some modern amenities are there, which helps. It's a little bit more rugged than here, for sure, a little bit more isolated. But by the devotees preaching, there's many Indian people in British Columbia, and when they do their Rath Yatras now, they get 2,000 people coming from all over BC, which is quite wonderful. And for Janmashtami, we had 400 guests coming. So even this place may be, not so close to Paris or big cities. Still, a lot of people can be attracted here. If there's, because people want to see how we live. And that was Papa Rossa's motto, that, we can preach Krishna consciousness, but how are we living it ourselves? How are we practicing Krishna consciousness? So it can be a very attractive place for people to come from all over, and you're already getting guests, but as you develop this place, more people will come, more people will want to come. In Canada, there's a place called the Upper Canada Village, and what it is just a tourist attraction showing how people live in the 1800s. They have all the ancient ways of farming and different things, and it attracts thousands of people because they just want to see how the first people, the first people who came, how they were living. So people will be attracted to see how we live, how is Vedic culture being implemented in the modern age. And if we can demonstrate that, that is a big preaching. And especially those who are grihastas. Grihastha life is a very powerful preaching tool, because not everyone identifies as a sannyasi or a monk, but most people identify as a grihastha, and they want to see how we raise our kids, how wonderful. And they have such trouble with their own kids. Every parent is freaked out about their kids getting drunk or getting intoxicated, or their daughter coming back pregnant. It's a big problem in modern society. So if we could show how we raise our children, how wonderful they are, how they're responsible, in their, and now they grow up and then they get married and they become very responsible adults, it can be a very powerful tool for the modern people to come and see. I don't know about these Krishnas, but they have beautiful kids, and I'd like to have my kids like them. I don't want my kids to get drunk, get intoxicated. They may do that themselves, but they don't want their children to be doing that, right? Because they know the consequence of these nonsense activities. So we can, on that level, we can do a lot of preaching and inspire people. So is that okay, or you want me to get the
speak longer if you want? Maybe you feel inspired.
Yeah. So I don't know if some of you have any questions about what Srila was mentioning, or any questions you'd like to ask me.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Yeah.
Could you perhaps explain how you met Srila Prabhupada, how you came into Krishna consciousness?
Okay, how I became a devotee. I started seeing devotees in Ottawa. I was born in Ottawa, which is the capital of Canada, when I was 13. When I used to go and buy some goldfish and guppies. And I would see devotees sometimes chanting. And I wasn't really that focused, but the thing I noticed is they had their saffron running shoes, which was strange because in those days running shoes were just black and white, but everything was saffron. So later on, when I became a little older, I was working in the farmer's market called the Byward Market. This Mr. Ballone had a shop that I was working in. So one Saturday, the devotees were coming around and doing a Harinam. And, some of the people, some of the farmers were just mocking them, doing things. And so I kind of was fixated. I was seeing them going by the window of the store, and I kind of was spacing out, as we say. I wasn't working, I was just fixated. So my boss, as a joke, said, "Hey, how'd you like to be one of those guys?" And I was thinking, well, I wouldn't be doing this for Jesus. I didn't know it was Hare Krishna, but I knew it was something religious. And I was thinking, I wouldn't be doing that for Jesus. So I admired the devotees, their determination and their faith and their conviction. So later on, I quit school. I was, and I started working. I had a little job for the government, and I got off the bus one day and I saw the temple Bhakti Yoga sign. I didn't really know it was the Hare Krishnas, but I went knocking because I had a teacher that was into yoga. He was a cool guy. I liked him. So I went in, and it was the Hare Krishnas. And they started talking to me and stuff, and they sold me these japa beads and a Krishna book. So, and a cookbook. So I went home and started reading the Krishna book. And when it came to the pastime where Krishna kills Kamsa, not only does he kill Kamsa, but he drags them all over the arena. And I closed the book. I said, this is too much. God is killing. You know, from a Christian background, I thought God is supposed to be loving, and here he's killing. But then I chanted, I said, okay, I'll try chanting. I chanted one round, and I was convinced that I'll become a devotee. And I started looking in the mirror, what would I look like with a bald head? I was 17, so I was young.
You got long hair?
Yeah, way down to my back. It was natural, it just grew, so just let it grow. And so then I went to the temple, and I asked them, what is all this about? God is killing. So when they gave me the explanation that God's absolute, so his loving and killing is the same. And I accepted that as a good answer. I said, okay, that's great. And I had perceived, I don't know how, but everything was turning in circles. The time was in circle, the season, the planets, So I didn't know about karma or reincarnation, but I was thinking there must be a key, something to open that cycle. So when the devotees started talking to me about reincarnation and karma, I said, well, that's it. So it fitted into my own perception of things, although I didn't have the knowledge and the word to express, but I had that feeling that something was, and I was always looking at what's the goal. That's why I quit school, because I was just fed up. There was no, well, you need a diploma to get a job. I remember one teacher saying, even to become a garbage picker, someone who picks the garbage, you're going to have a diploma. You'll never get it. I don't want to do that. So life was really meaningless. It was just boring. And I remember working at my job. The boss, he was retiring in 2-3 months, and he was bored to death. You could see he was just doing his time and just waiting to leave and get his pension. And I was looking at this fellow, and he'd be reading the newspaper and going to the bathroom and walking around and just wasting time, just anticipating and counting the days that he'd be leaving his job after working there, 40 years, And I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to jump all the loops. I'll get this promotion, and I'll get that promotion, and finally I'll get his job, and I'll be as bored as he is. I was like, this is ridiculous. So then I started praying to Krishna to free me from all my attachments and so forth. And one day the boss called me in, and he fired me. Because it was, working for the government, we would start at 9, 10 o'clock we'd stop for a break, to 10:15, but we'd all go to about 10:20, 10:30. By the time you get back to your desk and sort things out and everything, so you'd waste another 15 minutes. Then at noon there'd be lunch, so we'd, till about 12:30, but then we'd go till 1:45, and then at 2:30, then another break. So it's just like a ridiculous job, But that was the schedule. So, and I had a job that I had to go and deliver mail to the different governmental offices. But I'd meet devotees on the street, and I'd start talking to them, they'd start preaching to me and stuff, and I'd come back an hour late, right? And where's this guy? It takes half an hour to deliver this mail, and he's taken 2 hours or an hour and a half, And then during these breaks, I'd be chanting japa, right? During the coffee break, they're all drinking coffee and stuff, I'd be chanting japa. So then this kid's weird, So anyway, finally the boss fired me, and I was so happy. So then I went and joined the Harinam party. And everyone was sad for me. Oh, you got fired. Well, no, man, that's great. That's what I was praying for. So then I joined the Harinam party, and I was so happy. it's like someone who been stuck in an elevator for 5 hours, and then all of a sudden the doors open. Right? You can imagine the feeling, right? You've been stuck there in the elevator for 5 hours, and so that was how I was feeling. So I started with the Harinam. I was dancing so much that they had to calm me down. I was embarrassing them. I'd be my long hair and just swinging around, and, you know. So they said, "Okay, calm down, kid," you know. So then I went home. I was still living with my parents. My father had died when I was 11. So anyway, I joined. I just packed up things and I just moved into the temple. And the temple president, Dharmaraj, he saw me coming. He said, "Well, what are you doing?" So I'm moving in. He said, "Well, did you ask anyone to move in? Did you talk to anybody?" Because we were just hippies, right? We just drop in some place and crash here, crash there, and you know, and it was just kind of okay. So I didn't know I had to ask permission to move at the temple. And he said, "Well, anyway, just come on in," you know, gave me a hug and come on in and join.
Is that in Altua?
Yeah.
Still in Altua.
Yeah. And 2 weeks later, we were all fortunate to go down to New Vrindavan to see Srila Prabhupada. And that was a wonderful experience. But that's when Bhakti Raghava Swami got initiated, who was Raghava Pandit then, and Krishnadas Kaviraj. But I basically just joined, and I was 17, turning 18. So
What year was that?
74. Yeah. So, you know, I was just a young kid, and but I really felt bad that I wasn't going to get initiated. I was begging the president to allow me. He said, "No, just join, and you're just, you know, been around for 2 weeks, you can't get initiated." I didn't know I could, and I was thinking, where am I going to see Srila Prabhupada again? Right? I really missed out here, you know, so I was really kicking myself for not joining earlier, but, you know, circumstances were such that. But later I did see Srila Prabhupada in Atlanta, and Prabhupada chanted on my beads, because the temple president had recommended me, but I was on traveling Sankirtan. So what happened is, over the phone, he had received a letter of initiation, and he gave me my name, Lakshmi Nath. So when I went to Atlanta, Srila Prabhupada was there, and there was a big initiation. Radha Damodar, Vishnu Chan was there, and the Radha Damodar party. So there was maybe 50 devotees getting initiated. But in the letter, Prabhupada had said that I should send my beads to Kirtanananda, and he would chant on them. But that hadn't happened because I wasn't traveling Sankirtan. So I gave my beads through some devotee, and they gave them those beads to Srila Prabhupada, and Srila Prabhupada chanted on them. So I was quite happy, and somehow I still have these beads. And later on in Vrindavan, I got Gayatri mantra. Srila Prabhupada gave me Gayatri there. And it's a little bit of a funny story, because Srila Prabhupada was, he had the Brahman thread holding it between his two thumbs, and after giving me the Gayatri mantra, he slipped the thread over my head. And I had seen the devotees, you know, wrapping the Brahman thread around their tongue. So I went like this to Srila Prabhupada, thinking he was going to wrap it around my tongue. Prabhupada said, "What's this?" You know. So he slapped my tongue, and then he just slipped the thread around my arm, and that's what he wanted to do. But you know, we were so green, we didn't know anything. But the only qualification we had, at least for me at the time, was just so much faith in Srila Prabhupada. And one of the first things I heard Srila Prabhupada say, because in those days you had Guru Maharaji and the Rajneesh and Children of God and different people who were out there, the Munis. So, but Srila Prabhupada was quite different. And the first thing I heard Srila Prabhupada say is, "It's better to make an intelligent man your enemy than make friends with fools." And I thought, wow, this is so right on, you know. It's like, it's not someone in the clouds. He's got his 2 feet right on the ground. So I really admired that from Prabhupada. He was so practical in anything he did. And he brought Krishna consciousness to a very practical platform. It wasn't mystical and abstract, and it was very clear, you know, what we were doing, what we needed to do, who we were. We're not the body, we're spirit souls. We just need to chant Hare Krishna, and he conveyed, as we all know, we're all here. And the last point I can make is, probably most of you have never seen Srila Prabhupada in person, but it takes a very extraordinary person to be able to attract someone, even though you've never seen him. Because, as a family person, as a father, and it's sometimes even to connect with our own children is difficult. It's not always that easy to connect with our own children, but to Srila Prabhupada, to be able to connect with all of us, that's an extraordinary quality. That requires no false ego. The false ego makes it difficult to communicate. But because Prabhupada had no false ego, he could attract everyone. So we're also fortunate that somehow Srila Prabhupada has come into our lives. And as Prabhupada would say, we are all the architect of our destiny. So it's up to us, each of us, to drive that plane back to Godhead. Thank you, Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Thank you, Lakshmi, Prabhu. Your good wife, Sharda. Is she here?
No, she probably heard me before.
Yeah, but maybe she heard Prabhupada here.
Yeah.
But they're leaving us this morning.
Around 1 o'clock actually.
At 1 o'clock.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for having us, and thank you for all your wonderful association. It was inspiring to be here, and hopefully Krishna will make arrangements for us to come back. Maharaj, thank you very much for your kindness, your association.
Anything.
Go.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.